While running for president, Barry Goldwater employs a law and order strategy. He suffers a dramatic loss to Lyndon Johnson, and this is in part due to his stringent conservatism, which was losing its place in American culture at the time as evidenced by the Civil Rights Movement. He held the fanatical end of the Republican Party, refusing to moderate any of his views or opinions on any forefront of primary issues. He also held true to the Southern strategy, common of Republican predecessors, which played on themes of race and crime. Richard Nixon was more of a moderate than Goldwater, and he found a happy medium that coincided with the racial tension of the time, but also the emergence of racial equality that was on the horizon. This strategy appealed to civil rights leaders and activists because there was no overt, direct racism. He talks about drug abuse as a faceless enemy, again not explicitly connecting race to drugs or crime, and instead accounts the chaos of the United States to a loss of respect for authority and government. He does a really good job of appealing to minority populations, but simultaneously protecting the interests of white voters. Reagan extended Nixon's law and order agenda into a tough-on-crime agenda. He calls illicit drugs a threat to national security, and during his time as president, First Lady Nancy Reagan develops a campaign called Just Say No, aimed at youth and the prevention of drug abuse. Reagan is the first to officially declare a war on drugs and talks about warlike strategies and uses tactical and combat vocabulary when speaking about drugs. Keep in mind here that every war needs an enemy, and Reagan's rhetoric sets up the conditions for targeting an enemy very well. Clinton knew if he was going to win the presidency as a Democrat, he needed to harshly blindside the Republicans. He demonized drugs and drug users and ostracized drug sellers. With his rhetoric, drug abuse develops your typical image of a drug criminal. Like Reagan, he employs calculated combat tactics and attacks the sources of drugs, also known as a supply reduction effort. The Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986 creates a sentencing disparity between crack and cocaine of 100 to 1, but the only difference is the solid versus powder form and the price you pay for it. Crack is far cheaper, typically used by low-income minorities, while powder cocaine is more expensive and typically used as a white drug.